The book of Genesis, expounded in a series of discourses by Robert S. Candlish, Volume 1. Chapter 8. Part 2. The universal corruption. The fool hath said in his heart, There is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good. The Lord looked down from heaven upon the children of men, to see if there were any that did understand and seek God. They are all gone aside. They are altogether become filthy. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. Psalm 56, verses 1 to 3. The seasons of revival from time to time, granted to the people of God, as well as the long lives and successive deaths of the patriarchal fathers, might have been expected to have a wholesome influence on that early world. But the depravity of man was to be proved, and the sovereignty of divine judgment and divine grace was to be manifested. 1. The progress of corruption was not arrested. It increased as the tide of population rolled on. For a time, the people of God, adhering to the house of Seth, kept themselves unspotted from the world. But even that barrier was at last overthrown. The sons of God, or the righteous, sought alliances by marriage with the families of the ungodly. For it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Chapter 6, verses 1 and 2. They followed their own inclination, without regard to the religious character of the wives whom they chose, a grievous sin, which in every age has marred the religion of many a household, and turned many a fair promise of revival into a season of hopeless declension and apostasy. To this sad error, the godly seed had previously been tempted by other considerations. There were very plausible means for their cultivating a good understanding, at least with the less abandoned of the ungodly faction. The useful arts and graceful embellishments of social life began to flourish, as has been seen in the house of Cain. Chapter 4, verses 19 to 24. Agriculture, commerce, music, and poetry were cultivated among his descendants and brought to a high pitch of perfection. Were the children of Seth to forego the benefit of participating in these improvements and advantages? Were they to deny themselves the profit and pleasure of well-directed industry and well-refined taste? Was it not rather their duty to adopt and prosecute the laudable undertakings set on foot by the enterprise of the world, to rescue them out of the hands of God's enemies, and so make it manifest that religion does not frown on any of the lawful occupations and polite usages of society, but, on the contrary, ennobles and hallows them all? Then again, the lawless violence of which Lamech's impious boast of impunity, chapter 4, verses 23 and 24, was a token and example, and which soon became so general as to fill the earth, might seem to warrant, and indeed require, on grounds of policy, some kind of dealing between the persecuted people of God and the more moderate of their opponents. Amid the distractions which must have prevailed in the ranks of the ungodly, it might seem a point of wisdom and duty that the righteous should avail themselves of any openings which occurred for an alliance with their neighbours, as well as of any advances which these neighbours chose to make to them. Might they not thus lawfully defend themselves with the aid of one portion of the world against another? Might they not combine in a common cause with those who are not altogether at one with them in religion? Nay, might they not then detach their allies from the world, and by their friendly intercourse win them to God? Such plausible experiments in the line of worldly conformity naturally brought in a third kind of compliance. The intercourse of business almost insensibly led to a closer union in private life. The sons of God and the daughters of men were thrown much together. Other motives than a regard for the glory of God and the salvation of the soul were allowed to regulate the choice of companions and associates. The godly were unequally yoked together with unbelievers. Marriages were contracted according to the dictates of policy or the fondness of passion, and not in the Lord. It was no longer deemed essential that husband and wife should be heirs together of the grace of life, that their prayers might not be hindered. The children of God took them wives of all which they chose, looking more to a fair countenance than to a pious heart. The church and the world intermarried and intermingled. And with what result? There ceased to be a separate and peculiar people, testifying for God and reproving sin. And ere long a race of giants, powerful and lawless men, overspread the whole earth. Chapter 6, verse 4. 2. At last, the patience of the Lord is represented as worn out. The end of his long suffering has arrived, and the day of his wrath is at hand. His spirit, having been so long grieved, is to be withdrawn, as if any further contending with man's desperate depravity must needs be unavailing, and judgment is to be executed. The Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Chapter 6, verse 3. He is flesh and flesh only. It is needless to prolong the use of means and opportunities, which only serve to harden his heart, to deepen his guilt and aggravate his doom. He must be suffered to show himself to be what he really is, mere flesh, corruption and carnality. The decree, indeed, is not instantly executed. The Spirit of God is not suddenly withdrawn. A respite is granted. Yet, even yet, his days shall be 120 years. Chapter 6, verse 3. Corrupt as it is, the race is to be spared for a season. But it is only for a season. For the race is incurably corrupt. Not Cain's seed only, but Seth's also, is become flesh, carnal instead of spiritual, living after the flesh and not after the Spirit. Romans chapter 8. It is all ripe and ready for destruction. Destruction, however, is the Lord's strange work. He is represented as going about it reluctantly and with regret, repenting of the very creation of a race on which he is under the righteous necessity of inflicting so terrible a doom. It repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. Chapter 6, verse 6. The expression here employed to describe the Lord's feeling towards the impenitent is in accordance with such language as that of the prophet. How shall I give thee up, Ephraim? How shall I deliver thee, Israel? How shall I make thee as Admah? How shall I set thee as Zeboim? Mine heart is turned within me, my repentings are kindled together. But there is a peculiarity here. For as I have sworn that the waters of Noah should no more go over the earth, so have I sworn that I would not be wroth with thee, nor rebuke thee. For the mountains shall depart, and the hills be removed, but my kindness shall not depart from thee, neither shall the covenant of my peace be removed, saith the Lord that hath mercy on thee. Isaiah chapter 54, verses 9 and 10.